All right, everyone, and welcome back into the Views from the 573. Hope you all are doing well. On this edition, we are continuing our deep dive into the NFL divisions. This time, we're taking a look at the AFC South. We only got one more division left after this in the AFC East, so it's kind of pretty sad that we're almost done with this, but it's a bittersweet feeling because on the one hand, it's been fun doing these. On the other hand, it means we're getting closer to the NFL season coming up. So it feels like I'm going to get these done more quicker than usual, with the East being the only one left. And then we got our prediction show, and we got, a couple weeks, in between that from the time we do that to the start of the season. So got a little bit of space right there, but it's been a fun ride. And we got the South on this edition. Of course, we got my team. We got the Titans to talk about, who just played their first preseason game. Colts have played preseason. Jags, they had a kicker, Cam Little, hit a 70-yard field goal. If it was only the regular season, it would have counted. But we got them. We got the Texans. Should be a fun division to talk about. And I say that loosely because I just saw this right before I press record of the Madden ratings and the combined overall ratings of all the teams in the division. The AFC South was dead last. So, I use the term fun loosely here, but there should be some fascinating things to talk about with all these teams. It seems like there always are. So, we're going to dive into them, and it should be a fun ride. But, guys, if you haven't yet, check us out. Where you guys get your podcasts, check us out on YouTube. We got all of our previews up there with the NFC, all the previews up there, and the AFC North and the AFC West. Those pods and videos are up as well. So if you want to check those out, check them out. If you want to watch them on YouTube, they're there for you if you're a visual person. So check them out. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share with friends, all that good stuff. And it should be a fun show with the set that we have. And I'm very excited to talk about things here. I might just do them first just to get them out the way, because I feel like I am more excited about this team more than I normally am. And now, am I aware that they are probably going to be, there's a good likelihood that they're going to be finishing last in this division? Yes, but I'm excited to see. Yeah, I guess it's just having a number one overall pick as a quarterback come in, and you're really excited about what he brings to the table, him growing as a player, what he can bring as a leader, and as a young quarterback. Because I mean, if you take a look at a lot of the young quarterbacks that the Titans have drafted, they've been misses. Mariota's had some success early on. Vince Young did too, but it flamed out, towards the end. So I think it may be just that, and also just like the youth that's on this squad. I'm very, I'm going to use this word again, fascinated by with all the pieces that they got. So I figure, let's just start with the Titans. Let's just start with them. Let me get them out the way, and let me get my excitement out the way. I'm already excited to kind of talk about them. But taking a look at some of the additions and extensions that the Titans had this offseason. Again, we'll have graphics up, and these are just a few of them. Of course, signed Dan Moore, the former left tackle from the Pittsburgh Steelers, to a huge deal, 4 years, around $82 million. Cody Barton, the linebacker from Denver, comes on over from the Mile High City to the Music City. And Kevin Zeitler, the veteran guard, is coming over on a 1-year deal. Xavier Woods, the safety, on a 2-year deal. Tyler Lockett leaving Seattle. It's kind of weird seeing him in a different jersey than a Seahawks jersey, but nonetheless, he's now in Nashville. Draymond Jones also leaves Denver for Nashville. Van Jefferson and Sebastian Joseph Day. Some notable departures. And on the graphic, I had Quandre Diggs. Scratch that. He's back. So we'll scratch that one off. Mason Rudolph, Nick Westbrook-Akine. I don't know who's going to catch all those touchdown passes now, after the stretch he had last season. But he's now gone, I believe, in Miami. Dylan Radins is gone. Harold Landry is now with the Patriots. Traded Kenneth Murray. Chidobe Awuzie And again, Diggs is brought back. Draft, of course, an overall pick. In the second round, they traded back and got Fime Oladejo, the project edge rusher from UCLA. Got a third round pick back, took Kevin Winston, the safety from Penn State. And then in the fourth round, really got Cam some weapons here. Two receivers. First, Chimere DK from Florida, the speedster at wideout. Then Gunnar Helm from Texas, the tight end. And then Alec Manor from Stanford. And then Jackson Slater in the fifth round. And they had a couple others with Marcus Harris in the sixth. And then Khalil Mullings from Michigan, the running back, in the seventh. So let's dive in and let's talk about this team. Again, I feel like I am excited to see how this team does. I have not been this excited to see a Titans team play. Again, granted, they might be bad, but I'm excited to see how this experiment or how this thing goes in the Cam Ward era. I think it's about time that there's a guy in Cam, and he said all the right things in mini camps, training camps, all the way leading up to, to the preseason game. And he's been saying all the right things. He's shown like, hey, he's a guy that you want to be your face of the organization. And is actually a real quarterback. No shots of Levis, even though that might seem like a shot, but it just didn't feel like that. Now, granted, Cam does have some of those same tendencies. You don't want to play hero ball and just make plays down the field. But I think he can learn from that and hone those skills in where he can be like a Mahomes type of player. You get those plays out of the pocket, but he's more careful. He picks and chooses when those moments more efficient with how he's able to get the ball out. Now in the preseason game, he only got 2 series, and again it's preseason. But in that second drive, he looked pretty good. There's rumors of that of Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley connection really coming to fruition on the field on Saturday. There were rumors of that really coming on the practice field, and that was the case. So there were 3 straight times where Cam dropped back, threw it to Calvin Ridley. So it seems like there's a good connection there with your number 1 receiver, and that's going to need to be the case because the number 2 spot is up for grabs. It's completely up for grabs. You don't know who it's going to be, whether it's going to be Van Jefferson or if it's going to be young guys like A.O. Manor or DK or whoever it's going to be. One of those guys is going to make their way into the starting rotation, I believe. So I think, I take a look at one of the things that they absolutely did this season that a lot of teams with a young quarterback should do is immediately build around what you want to be your franchise quarterback, your savior of the program, if you will. And that's immediately what they did. I mean, Moore, who sure had a good year at left tackle for the Steelers, I think does help with your floor a little bit and gives you a solid left tackle, which the Titans have been desperately needing, at least a solid left tackle for years now. They kept on running Diz Staley out there, and it was a revolving door, literally. Yeah, it was not pretty. So I now expect base competent left play from Dan Moore. So you bring him in, and it also kind of solves 2 problems right there, because then it moves J.C. Latham to right tackle, his natural position. He's really gotten his body is really developed and has lost a little bit of weight and has really gotten in really good shape. And I think can thrive at right tackle now, where that seems it's his natural position. It's where he played at Alabama. So I think you saw 2 problems there with one signing. You get left tackle play, a solid left tackle play, and then you get Latham at right tackle, who I think he should be really good at right tackle. Again, that's a lot of projected development, built-in development, and all that and whatnot. But it will help having a guy like Kevin Zeitler right next to him at right guard, and having that experience, that better leadership right next to him. Lloyd Cushenberry, they activated him. We'll have to see how he gets back, and they're not going to push him, but it seems like there's some good signs that he's going to be ready to go here. Maybe not week 1, but here early in the season. So the Peter Skronsky at left guard. So it seems like for right now, everything has changed for this line, and there's a lot of projected, built-in development. But if you project that, it projects as a really good, really solid offensive, in which if you're a rookie quarterback, you need that. Now, again, there's only preseason and second teamers, but they did exactly what they need to do, because there's a couple times where there's clean pocket for Cam. I saw they had no pressures. The Bucs had no pressures. So I think, granted, it's second teamers, but it's a good sign that at least, against second teamers, they're holding the fort down. And then we'll have to see how they do it first team. It's going to be a tough test. It's week 1, you're heading to Denver against a deep set, as we the AFC West preview. Like to get after it last year, like to make people's middle. And I guarantee you that's going to be the same game plan. They're going to have to get for that week. But it feels like the infrastructure that they set him up with is what they need to do, what all teams need to do when you have a young quarterback that you really believe in, and getting weapons a little bit later on. Now, listen, you guys have known. I've complained about them not drafting receiver for the last couple years. In the year they take receivers later on, I actually like them more than what they could have gotten in years past. Now DK, he's a fast guy. He's going to have to develop a little bit more. So is Manor. He had a couple drops issues, but a really good frame for a wide receiver. So you're really excited about him, and Gunnar has making waves camp too. You might see some more two tight end sets with Congo and Helm there. So I'm really excited about that. And in the run game, I think, listen, Tony Pollard was able to run for 1,000 yards behind that offensive line. I think this offensive line, again, a lot of projected built-in development. They're going to be so much more improved. And I think he's going to have a little bit more running lanes to run into. And Tajay Spears, now he did get banged up in the preseason game, so he might miss a few games here. Maybe he doesn't make it for week 1 with that high ankle sprain, but he's looked more explosive. And there's a couple plays in Tampa where he's a whole lot more explosive. So I think that's always a good case. And again, with this offensive line. So I think, there's clear sort of improvement there in getting that ready to go. And kind of last year, it was the offense. And kind of going to defense, it kind of feels like the defense is going to suffer a little bit because there really is no one ace pass rusher on this team. Letting Harold Landry go, you're looking for guys. You're hoping Odejo can be a guy, but he's still developing. He only played edge 10 games last year. He was a inside linebacker for the first couple games at UCLA before he went out to edge. So it's a project there. There's a lot of upside, a lot of potential, but there's a lot of development still left to do here. So maybe you can count on guys like Arden Key, Draymond's vets that have been there that can kind of help him along the way, give him some time where like he's ready to go out there. He'll be ready to go. They'll be good to go, and they can maybe have a really great pick there in round. I think that is a hope there, especially Kevin Winston too, a guy who's working back from injury. With Hooker back there, Xavier Woods, you're bringing in Diggs again. So a guy that you can kind of ease back in as he comes back from injury. But it sounds like there's been a lot of talk about him doing really good in the time that he's. So a lot of those guys are really high praise so far during camp. Again, it's only camp. They're going to have to prove it on the field. But the defense kind of situation. Simmons and Sweat, they should be good on the interior. That run game should be a whole lot better than it was last year. I read it was like in the 20s, like 25. So it's going to be a whole lot better with those two. But Sweat had a pretty good rookie season. And then you got Simmons also on the inside. So I feel like that should be really good. And then the linebacker situation, Cody Barton is going to be wearing the green dot. And, he did pretty decent at Denver. It's just who's going to take that other spot. So I think this defense, it's going to be a work in progress. I am worried about that, and of course you got L'Jarius Sneed, and when he's going to come back on uh, the physically unable to perform list too, along with Cushenberry. So we'll have to see when he comes back. But Jarvis Brownlee, for a first round pick last year, did pretty decent. At times, he shut down pick, but at times, pretty good. So he's going to have a bigger role this year, with them moving on from Awuzie. I imagine that's going to be the case. So I think with a team like the Titans, it's just like, is there a trajectory upward this season? We know this team is going to be, again, going to be in last place in this division. It's just like, can you see the vision? Is the vision getting more clear at the end of the season with Cam Ward in this era? Is there a upward trajectory with this team, with around Cam and around this offense line and around these young weapons that you can see like, okay, we can see something good happening in year 2 under Cam? I think that's going to be that's going to be the case. It's not going to be like a Washington situation where all of a sudden here come the Titans out of the blue. I don't think that's going to be the case. Although I would love that selfishly as a fan of the team, but I think 5-6 wins, it's just moderate improvement and show like, okay, we got something going on here, and head into year 3 of Brian Callen and 2 of Cam Ward, and let's see what you got in 20. I kind of think that's where I'm at with the Titans. Really excited about what they can be this. Excited to see Cam take the field, and again, see week 1 he's got a tough test against Denver. I'm really excited to see what he's able to do there. If he's able to do really well, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. Listen, there needs to be. You got a new stadium coming in. Need some excitement, and if he's able, then he's going to be in. It's going to be good with who's quarterback. So that's where I'm going to leave it off with the Titans here. Again, I'm super excited to see how this with Cam Ward unfolds. I'm really excited to see how he looks, and see just how better he can get each and every week. So I think that's going to be the fun thing with this team. Next up, let's talk about the team I had listed here first in my notes. Let's go to Indy and let's talk about the Colts. Of course, they had a little bit of a news around, of course, with Richardson with his pinky, but it looks like he's fine, going to be ready to go. But already in the news right there with all that stuff. So let's take a look at what the Colts did this offseason. They brought in Lou Anarumo, the former Bengals defensive coordinator, to take the same role here. Daniel Jones on a 1-year, $14 million deal. Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum. Need to upgrade that secondary. That's what they did. 2 big contracts for those 2 guys. Khalil Herbert as well, and Neville Gallimore. Lost Joe Flacco, Fred, Ryan Kelly, Dale Dangbo, EJ Speed, Julian Blackman, and in the took Tyler Warren, the very versatile tight end out of Penn State. Took JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State, the edge rusher there in the 2nd round. Justin Wadley from Minnesota, another corner there to help out there. Jalen Travis in the 4th, DJ Giddens in the 5th, and Riley Leonard in the 6th round from Notre Dame. This is the most Richardson era. It's his era, and it's year 3 of Stike, year 3. Yeah, it's got to be time to prove with these 2 guys. It'll be time for this coaching staff to prove that, hey, he can get this team into the playoffs, but also for Richardson to prove that he is an NFL quarterback and that they don't have to move on from him. And the Daniel Jones move, it kind of said, hey, if he is struggling, if the Colts, if they start out this season like 2-4, 2-5, something like that, they might make the move to Daniel Jones. They might go to Danny Dimes and say, hey, come in, be our starter, see if you can help us out a little bit. Kind of raise the floor a little bit and help us out. I mean, if you take a look at Indy's offensive situation, it's a pretty decent situation because you got Michael Pittman, he's really good. AD Mitchell still got some development to do, but AJ Pierce, Josh Downs, they're decent. They know their roles, and then obviously you bring in Tyler Warren here, a really good pass catcher here that can really take some stuff underneath and get some yards after the catch. There's a lot to like, and then of course you got Jonathan Taylor at running back, and how he is at that. So I mean, you got weapons here. If you're Indy, you got a lot to be excited about on offense. It's just, can you get quarterback figured out? If you can get quarterback figured out, then you hope, somebody like AD Mitchell takes a leap in his second year. That Tyler Warren is as advertised in year one. And if that's the case, then I think you should be good to go. Now, the offensive line, of course, you lost Will Fries and Ryan Kelly in free agency. So now you're going to Tanner Borrellini and Matt Goncalves at guard. So you got those two guys in there. So this is kind of the succession plan. They're probably like, okay, we're probably not going to be able to keep those guys. We got succession plans in place that we feel good about, and that was the case. So you got those guys coming in, sliding in those spots. You got Quinn Nelson, know how good he is. Rashard Raymond at left tackle, he just got paid a big deal. And then Braden Smith, who's really good when he's on the field. So besides all that, it's really about who's going to be quarterback, and can Richardson be that guy that they took him so high in a few years ago? Can he be that guy? I'm remembering back, and talking about that quarterback class, and just kind of talking about, I think, being his guy. So far, it hasn't been great. He's got a lot to prove, and you can also take into account like he's been hurt in parts of his first two seasons. You got, but also again, the best ability is available, and in a lot of these cases, he has a. I mean, Joe Flacco did pretty decent form last year. I don't know what's gotten to Joe. Like, he's just playing really well late in his career. So I know, but also I'm not happy that Anthony Richardson hasn't been as advertised early on in his career. So you're hoping that this Richardson and second part is able to finally somehow in this third year, which again is critical for both those parties, and find a way to get show some improvement and say, like, okay, hey, we don't have to worry about going and getting another quarterback, because I can guarantee if Rich again, if some time and he's not good, no signs of developing, then the Colts, I think, are in a weird spot, because then you'll have Daniel Jones here, but again, he'll raise the floor, but by how much? So they'll be in a real mess here if that happens. So I think that's going to be the key thing with this Colts team this year. It's just Richardson, be that guy that they took at fourth overall a couple years ago. Can he be that guy and stay on the field? Really show, like, okay, hey, I can make that read, because I saw one picture of a preseason game here recently where, of him throwing the ball, he had a blitz coming in on the right side, and it was like he didn't throw into the blitz. So I think you're taught as quarterback, hey, whichever side is blitzing, you throw over to that side. Yes, they're coming right at you, but you on the side. And I believe there's like two guys he could dump it. One he could have dumped it off to, receiver he could have thrown a short pass to. It's stuff like that. I think you hope to see some more development, some more, of what to do there from Richardson. So, but again, this offense has a lot to like about, with the Warren, really fun tight end. Pittman, Downs, Pierce, AD. It's just, can the quarterback get settled in? Can that position get figured out here in 2025? That's going to be the key thing here. I mean, and with the defense, I think it's still got a long way to go, because it feels like there's a lot of number two pass rushers on this squad. Kwity Paye is solid. They lost a Dangbo. Latu, you're still hoping that he can develop as a first-round pick and continue a upward trajectory. They took Tuimoloau, who's a solid pass rusher. it's just like, can somebody emerge from that group? Can Latu do that? Can Pay do that? And Pay, I believe, is coming up on the last year of his contract. So, wow, it kind of feels like insurance in case Pay leaves. He can step in next year if they let him walk. So, can they find a guy besides DeForest Buckner up front that help things out? Two, it feels like they don't have a guy anymore that they can just, slide right in. Losing EJ Speed, who's really good for them, I feel like that could be something. But the secondary, I love the additions they made in the secondary. I love the additions they did there. Inarumo, I think it's going to like having two veteran playmakers back there at corner and at safety, and Ward find them. That funky stuff that he likes to do. Just put them out there and trust that they're going to know what to do as vets. There's a reason why they paid Ward $54 million, and there's a reason why they paid Bynum $60 million. So I think the secondary, they needed some help there. They needed help back there for a while now. So to go out and address it, there are a couple other spots back there that they could probably address, help out there. You got Juju Brents, another young corner back there. So maybe in there, but they absolutely needed to address the secondary. Those are the moves that they absolutely had to make for the defense. Even though you still go get a pass rusher, a guy that can be an ace pass rusher. But again, I think it's probably Latu to Maloau can, as young players, they get the reps, need to be that ace and Pay and grow into. We'll have to see. So again, a lot of this team, it hinges on the quarterback situation and what becomes of it. Can Richardson be that guy? Colts now, that's the case. So that's even off with the Colts here. I still think, as far as the other teams in the division, I think they should be solid. Be dependent on the quarterback situation. I think it's going to be a lot of that is going to depend on where the Colts land, whether they're in the playoffs or whether they're on the outside looking in. And maybe they may have to make some hard choices there with Chris Ballard and Steichen and Richardson. There may be some hard conversations that might be had at the end of the season. But for now, those hard conversations, they can wait and hope. And if they don't happen, because if they don't happen, that means something went right for them. So that's where I'll leave it off with the Colts for now. And let's move to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and let's talk about their off season. Very active off regime coming in. Doug Peterson, both out. Income Coen, the offense coordinator from Tampa Bay, stays in the state of Florida. As some comes in from the Rams from their organization. And off-season moves, they added Jordan Lewis. They additions, Patrick McCarry, Robert Hainsey, trying to help out that offensive line, and De'Ami Brown and Hunter Long on offense. Give Lawrence some weapons. Guys that left, Mac Jones, Gabe Davis, Trey Kristen Kirk, Evan Ingram, Brandon Sheriff, Andre Cisco, Mitch Morse, who's retiring, and 2026 first-round pick, folks. That's a big one right there. With our discussion about them, trade up using that first-round pick to number 2 from 5, taking the dual threat Travis Hunter. Third round, take Caleb Saul, the corner from Tulane. Wyatt Millum from West Virginia, another offensive lineman there. And then the fourth round took Bashal, Virginia Tech, and Jack Kaiser, the linebacker from Notre Dame. So I think in starting off with this conversation with the Jaguars, I think it's kind of like where we also talked about Ben Johnson going to the Chicago Bears, and that you have Liam Coen, who's this excellent offensive coach, but really was only able to do it for that one this past year in Tampa, but was really good. And he's been a good offensive coach elsewhere, but last year was really like, okay, they're really good. That Tampa offense was humming. Bucky Irving, I mean, and that offense was doing really good. And so I think again, uh, going back to that Ben Johnson point is now he's the head coach instead of just a play caller. How much is he going to be affected by that? We've seen time and time again that coordinators will sometimes get eaten up in this league. And, because they're not able to focus on the go of a team, that kind of hurts their play calling abilities and why they were brought in the first place. So I think you hope that doesn't happen with Liam Coen here after what he did with Baker Mayfield. To start off with that, I mean, he did an excellent job with Baker over his tenure at Tampa, and I mean last year did a great job again with that offense. Baker threw 41 touchdowns, and it was a career year for him. So he got most out of Baker Mayfield, really set that Tampa Bay off, him up for success. And I think if you're a Jaguars fan, you're hoping that carries over to Jacksonville, which Trevor Lawrence desperately needs it. Like, he is good, but it's time to stop just good to get to great. And I think that's what they're hoping that a guy like Liam Coen can do, is really unlock what I think a lot of people believe is the greatness that can be Trevor Lawrence as an NFL quarterback. Because there's been times he's been good, and there's been times he's not been so good. Getting a guy like Coen, who's had success with Baker, who is not the talent that Trevor Lawrence is, if he's able to do that with a guy that is talented as Lawrence, then I think for a Jags fan, that should get you really excited about this year, next year, and the year after that, and however long this goes. I think that you should be excited about that. But I think the other big thing here is the Travis Hunter of it all. And we've talked about, his ability to play two-way in the NFL and what like, and we did the Jags as a land. When I talked about but anyway, even though we didn't talk about the Jags in that piece, we still talked about what it would look like. And I think we did a YouTube short. I think it's out there if you want to go check out that conversation and see kind of more where we were talking about in that pod in general. I believe it was a draft pod, and just talking about Hunter's place. You can go check that out if you want to dive into a little bit more of kind of where we were at that point in time. And again, that's been a few months now, but it's kind of what's it going to look like now? Is it going to be critical situations? Going to be the snap count? We kind of talked a little bit about that for all to the NFL, and it's going to be drastically different. So I think that's, and obviously, of course, Trevor Lawrence wants him on offense. I think selfishly, Liam Coen does too, because he wants to scheme up plays for a guy like Travis Hunter, and especially with a guy like Brian Thomas, who this guy, I think, and he had, and which has an explosive downfield threat that went for over 1,000 yards. And I'm why we rise anymore because these LSU receivers, I mean, it doesn't matter. It feels like, kind of like with the Ohio State receivers, no matter who comes in, no matter who it is, they're all good. And where they're drafted, it feels like they're all going to be really productive NFL players. And he was that this year. So you got a vertical threat Hunter who can make downfield catches, contested catches, get yards after catch, and work underneath. I think offensively, I think is probably where you want to see a lot of them. On defense, you can win and try to get some additions here. Jordan Lewis, a corner, and also you got Tyson Campbell back there. You took Saul in the round as well. So other young, I think honestly, in my opinion, I think we're probably going to receiver And Lauren bring up a good point about why he should be on offense. Like, you want to go touchdowns or a couple pass deflections. So he's trying to make his case. You know, he's trying to hammer down like he should come here and play on offense with us and play more snaps on this side. So well, we're going to see to get his wish or not, but I think that's going to be the prevailing thing here with Lawrence and with Hunter as he heads into his rookie season. And then, I mean, for the offense in general, Diami Brown, well, that's going to cut it. So and just the offensive line. I think there's some questions about that because McCarry, he was for Baltimore, but it felt like was more overall a depth piece, a guy that swung that moved around the offensive line and played wherever he was needed. And they paid him 38 million, almost tripled what he was making. So doubled sounds more accurate, but they paid him that type of money, and then they also paid Hainsey 21 million for 3 years. Who, I mean, if you remember Tampa, they drafted Graham Barton to be the replacement there. But I think if you're Coen, he's probably looking at like, okay, I have a guy that knows the system, knows the types of things I want to run, be there and manning things at center. So I think that's kind of how it's at. So I think you gotta be keeping that in the back of your mind, Jags fan, and saying like, okay, well, McCarry was a guy that moved around on the offense line, and Hainsey was a guy that Tampa was looking to replace at center. So I think that's something you guys need to take in consideration. But it feels like it should be a better offensive line. At least that is the hope. And I think Trevor Lawrence will be in decent shape. ETN should be in decent shape as well. I think that's going to be the thing. And on defense, I like a lot of moves Jags made. It made sense, but some of the deals you're like, okay, McCarry again, it's 38 million, Hainsey 21 million. I mean, these weren't like break the bank types of deals, but it's just like, okay, Eric Murray, you pay him almost 20 million. Jordan Lewis, I think he's like 29 or 30 or something like that. Still cool corner, but you pay him 30 million, for during 3 years. So I think there's some question marks around those deals. The positions made sense. They needed some help in the secondary. They needed help with the offensive line. They needed other secondary Lawrence out. It's just like the players in the deal, how much sense do they make? I think that's something in consideration with this offense and defense. And also, I mean, going back to the whole trading up to get Travis Hunter, there's a lot of aggressiveness from this Jaguars team in this stage of team building that I know is right. But it says here, like, hey, listen, the Travis Hunter gamble better pay off because you traded a second round pick and a future first rounder. I mean, again, we talked about with the Browns. We don't know where that first round pick is going to be. It might be in the mid teens. It might be in the 20s. But there's always a small chance that it could be a. And well, we missed out on having a top 10 pick. But if Hunter produces, if he is everything that they trade him up to be, then I think you're like, fine, we'll take the hit. We'll first round pick next year. If he's able to do what he says he's able to do, play both ways, and they're like, we got two players for the price of one. So I think that's going to be the thing there. Also, another thing of note, the Jaguars defensive line, no additions there. Maybe they feel good about that defensive line, and they've made a lot of additions there over the last few years. And then, of course, Trayvon Walker, you have him come in, years ago, Josh Allen or Alan Hines, I forget, it is there, but keep an eye on is, there's a lack of additions there for that front set. Kind of take a look at if you want to be critical about anything that Where were the additions on front seven? Where were if it was for offense? It should have been because you believe in Lawrence and all that stuff. So it does make sense there. But I think that's something else they kind of as we season. Hines Allen is what it is. So you have those two, and you hope Smith can be a guy, but other than that, I think kind of where we're going with the Jag, just like again, you're going to need those guys. Lawrence to be really good this year. Again, a lot of it's going to be the key things for Jacksonville are going to be Coen and his cheers coach and Travis Hunter. That's going to be the thing. Can Coen get the most out of the offense? Now, Lawrence, like Baker, and Travis Hunter, what is he going to do? Is he going to play more wide receiver than wide receiver? A guy that's going to be in play for offensive player of the year or defensive player of the year for a rookie? Those are the things I think we're going to wait and see as to what happens in Jacksonville in 2020. And then finally, we got the Houston Texans to close us out here. And the Texans, a team that took a step back in year under CJ Stroud. Of course, they did end up getting to the playoffs and beat the Chargers, but end up losing in the divisional round. And that was at Kansas City, I believe. And then, of course, Tank Dell got hurt there, and he's out season. So it was a different year compared to 2023 for CJ Stroud and the Texans, where a lot is made here in this organization. And let's get into some of those changes on the coaching side of things. Bobby Slowick was fired, and Nick Caley is coming in as the OC. So you hope that he can bring something here to kind of upstart this offense. Then as far as the player side of things, Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie get monster extensions for two secondary players that have been widely huge and important for this Texans defense. Also on the offensive side, going to that, Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Trent Brown, and a couple others traded for Christian Kirk. So in division trade right there. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was traded for in the Kenyon Green trade, but he's hurt right now, so that's you might not have him. Nick Chubb was a late addition, so you might not see some of these in that graphic. Sheldon Rankins is back, Justin Watson, EJ Speed, Daryl Taylor, and then the guys that left, Stephon Diggs, Trent Laramie Tunsil. We'll talk a little bit about that here. Trey Kenyon Green, Shaq Mason release, Jeff Okudah, and Eric Murray are gone. And then the draft didn't have their first round pick. And I believe they traded back, and in the second round had a couple of picks. Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State, and get another big X receiver in there, a guy that has prototypical size and speed for that position. And the other second round pick at 48 took Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, a guy that I think is probably going to have some developing to do, but there's, I think, a lot to like with him and his frame. Then the third round took the Iowa State receivers, got Jalen Noel at 79 in the third round. Then they took another Jalen, spelled exactly the same, and Jalen Smith in the third round, the corner from USC. And then the fourth, they traded up. I believe, there was a third round pick. There's a future pick that was pretty high in the fourth round to go up and grab Woody Marks, the running back out of USC. So they double dip into Iowa State and also into USC. So a couple double dips right there with the Texans. So with this Texas team, again, this team was not the same as it was in 2023. And you could compound a lot of that to the offensive line just was not good at all last year. They gave up over 50 sacks. Stroud did not have as much time as he would have liked to. And that really kind of hurt in how this offense was able to go. Bobby Slowick was never able to figure it out. And ergo, he's now gone. And Nick Caley is now in. So they're trying to figure that out. And you can just tell by the offensive line moves that they made this offseason. I mean, again, let's kind of go through them. You know, they trade Laramie Tunsil, they trade Kenyon Green, so there's two guys out. But they bring in Cam Robinson, bring in Trent Brown, Laken Tomlinson. They drafted Ariante Ursary. So that's four guys right there that are brought in. And I feel like I may be missing a guy or two, but they brought in so much on the offensive line. You know, Jake Andrews also comes in as well, and then have him listed. Ed Ingram is in, so there's another one there. So that's six, I believe. So very clearly, the offensive line needed to be addressed. However, I I do feel like, I mean, the offensive line was bad, and Tunsil was not great last year, but he's by far and away your best lineman, and they traded him, and now you're working around with pieces that are not as good. To be quite honest, Tyus Howard is probably the most consistent guy on that line now, and can play guard or tackle. So he might be your most consistent guy now. And I mean, you just take a look at the other guys. Ursary again, probably developed. Cam Robinson only on a 1 year deal. Trent Brown getting on up there only on a 1 year deal. Tomlinson a 1 year deal, you know, and then you know a couple others. Blake Fisher struggled at times last year. Juice Scruggs another young guy. Jarrett Patterson another young guy. So it's just they got options, but are any of them good? Are any of them actually good? I kind of lean towards no, which again makes the Tunsil trade a little bit baffling here. Is that you trade your best guy on the line? I think that's my thing for me is you trade your best guy on the line, and now you're with the offensive line that you're hoping can come together, that you can piece together and figure out, okay, you know, you got all these different pieces, but where do they actually fit? You know, who's actually going to start where? You know, that's I think my thing here. So like, listen, they saw they need to go address offensive line. I mean, they had to. I mean, wouldn't you after having the year they did last year? It's just like I don't think this is the way they should have gone about it, knowing that they have a certain window open with Stroud playing the way he had a couple. Even though last year wasn't as good as you know, of course, his stellar rookie season, but still, again, a decent start to his career. So I feel I don't feel about this Tunsil move. It feels a little bit like of a head scratcher of a move right there to trade him. And it helps Washington out. You know, it helps them get their left tackle situation solved. But now Houston, they got to figure out theirs. If Cam Robinson's going to be the week one starter, or you know, Tyus Howard, or you know, is it Ursary, Trent Brown? You know, who's it going to be? Just like you know, get all these guys up on a dartboard and just throw darts at him, and that's who's going to be starting out there. So I really don't know about that move. I'm not sure if these moves are going to pay off for them, and I feel like you really do kind of need to again because of the timeline of this team. And you just take a look at the offense in general. They took a step back. Nico Collins was great last year, but otherwise, I mean, Diggs was so at times. You know, at other times he looked decent. Don Schultz struggled last year. He hasn't lived up to that big deal that they gave him a couple of ago. And then, of course, you don't have Tank Dell for the season, so you trade for Christian Kirk. And I believe it's a situation where you can get out of it next year. So there's a possibility. So you do have two young receivers from Iowa State, and both I think are pretty good. Like them, again, Higgins is that prototypical X receiver. Noah is that typical slot. It's fast, it's shifty, can catch everything. So they got some pieces there at receiver, and Watson I think is a good depth piece at wide receiver for him. It's just again, can the offensive line do enough to protect Stroud and where you're not giving up 50 plus sacks this year and keeping him upright? That's ideal for a company. Keeping Stroud upright that you have. I think that is going to be extremely key for them in 2020. And just hoping that, you know, it feels like with the way this division is set up, it feels like it should be the favorite, although I can see a path if things go well in Jacksonville. that they can win it. Indy gets their quarterback situation figured out, they can win it. Titans, I don't see it. You know, the hopeful fan in me is like, oh, they're going to be Washington. They're going to be the Washington of this year, or the of a couple years ago. But I don't feel like it's likely. So it feels like the Texans, they have an in here to win this division again. It's just, can this offensive line, you know, can that Tunsil trade not come back to bite them at some point in the season, like in the middle part of the season? Like, you're wondering, you know, with all these musical chairs, like, oh boy, we should have traded Tunsil. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have traded him. You know, again, even though he was not great, you know, last year, still better than what you have, you know? Yeah, a guy that's been really good for you for a long time. It just, again, I question it, you know. But defense, they still should be pretty good again. Again, this they got a dual team of pass rushers, and Daniil Hunter, and then Will Anderson, and you got other guys like the Nico Autry. You got Rankins coming back. You know, you got all these other guys helping out with the defense. So listen, the defense should be good. EJ Speed, he might be a starter there for linebacker. They got options there with Toto, Christian Harris, who does have a couple durabilities concerns, and Shair, who's a hard-hitting missile at playing linebacker in this league. A couple of big hits. Nothing he loves more. So, and then the secondary is really, really scary if you're an AFC South team, if you're an AFC team in general, or just an NFL team in general. It's a really scary group of guys to go against and try to pass against each and every week. It really is. Again, Stingley has been great. Kamari Lasser has really came on. I remember him making a couple plays in that Chargers. He got a picker, but he was all over the field. He's making plays. And then Petrie's been good. We'll see how he comes back from injury. Kalen Bullock as well. It's a really strong secondary. They've really invested into having a great secondary with their draft picks. And of course, Petrie and Stingley have panned out. You're hoping that Bullock and Lester can continue on their trajectory that they were on from last year. And it's a really scary secondary that can set up to be really good and help out. So, I mean, D'Amico Ryan, see, it feels like, listen, at the offensive line issue still persists, then it's like, okay, I'm going to have to, you know, count on the CJ Stroud, Nick Collins connection a couple times per game, you know, and say, hey, defense, go and get the ball back, go and wreak havoc. You're going to be the win. But the offensive line is okay. Then maybe you get CJ Stroud from a couple years ago where he's not getting sacked 50 times in a season, and able to dish it out to Collins, Higgins, Kirk, Noel, and Schultz. And, you know, the running back situation, didn't even touch on that. The running back situation is fascinating because you got guys there in Mixon who came on, did some good things for the Texans last year, but then you got Pierce as well. They signed Nick Chubb, who's still recovering from injury, so we'll see how he does. What is that going to look like? And they drafted Woody Marks, so that's 4 running backs right there, and only one ball, wide receivers, and there's also a tight end. So it might be tough. So I mean, Mixon, I think is going to be the guy, but it's just like, okay, there's a lot of running backs on this roster who's going to make it. So that's another thing too. But again, I think the Texans, listen, the offensive line issues need to get itself worked out. I think that's first and foremost with this season. If they do, then, you know, the Texans from 2023, they might show up. But if not, it'll be more the 2024 Texans that you'll see this season, 2025. I don't think Texans fans want that. They want a couple years ago with Stroud being protected by the offensive line, dishing out those weapons and making things happen and making things exciting, because that 23 season was so exciting. If you're a Texans, and see how he was able to do, you know, and we thought like, oh wow, what a great rookie season. It's just then Jane Daniels went up to him last year. So we'll have to see. But that's where we're going to leave it off with the Texans, everybody. And that's where we're going to leave it off. We're going to close the books on the AFC South. We'll talk about them in our prediction show in a couple weeks here. We get closer to the kickoff, and it's going to be Cowboys and Eagles NFC East matchup to get us started. What a regular season. So that's only a couple weeks away. The preview prediction show is in a couple weeks. So really excited to talk about who I have winning this division, even though it does feel pretty clear by the way we kind of talked about him here, about who I'm pretty going to lean towards picking. So that'll make 2 shows in a row where North made it kind of pretty clear where we're leaning, and then the South here kind of the same thing as well. So but nonetheless, we'll dive into all that later on, and we'll talk about them in that prediction show. So that'll do it for us here, everybody. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to all these preview shows. Again, it's bitter that they're coming to an end, and we only have one more left. One more left. We got the AFC East to talk about here with the Bills, Dolphins, Jets, and the Patriots, who had a talk about them on the next show for the previews. College football, we're already 3 power conferences down. We got to go in that one, and that is the SEC. And then we got Group of 5, and then, of course, our predictions. And I believe it's all going to line up perfectly because I just read college football is about a couple weeks away. So we'll probably get the predictions in just in time or just a little bit later than usual. But nonetheless, we'll get that out as soon as I can. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to this the views from the 573. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Come back the AFC. We wrap up the previews for the divisions and get closer to the NFL season. So till then, everybody, have a good day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.